Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Welcome to this very special session we have today. Donna Orender is an incredible woman. She's someone that I've admired for many, many years, and been a WNBA president, done a million things in sport, been a player, done just an incredible person, empathetic, beautiful human. And I'm really so happy that I get to interview her today a little bit.
Well, first of all, nothing like taking on a job that you really didn't know enough about, but always maybe you should, and then have a recession hit. But what I had to do is I had to convince people to believe that the WNBA was something that was going to be successful. It's very hard to run a business when everyone around you thinks it's going to fail. And a lot of people love to, and Lauren, you probably could have had that feeling. You were in the best market. There's no doubt about it at the time. I guess you, New York, Washington, but there were so many naysayers around. And that created a lot of issues. And so what I wanted to do is build brick by brick, right, person by person, a team of believers, and then prove through positive proof points, such as raising attendance, right? That was really having more people watch on TV, getting more coverage in the news. All those things would build on each other and ultimately build a belief system that showed the greater world that the WNBA was going to stay. And I felt really, really fortunate to be able to do that. It was very hard work. When you want to create something from a difficult situation, you want to be able to, person by person, brick by brick, build a belief system, a family, a team of believers, and then prove that to those believers, providing them actionable things. So one, we wanted to build our attendance. We did that little bit by little bit. We wanted to bring more people to watch on TV. We still have some of the highest TV ratings in the history of the league. And I am looking for them to all be broken. I'm hoping for this year. We wanted to bring more people to buy merchandise. We wanted more sponsors, and all of those things built on each other in a time when people did not think we could do it. And so, and we did it. And what made it really satisfying is the fact that every single day there were people that said, you can't do this. And every endeavor of our life, there's going to be people who would tell us we can't do things. And we have to be able to build the internal fortitude and then the team around us to be able to say, you know what, I hear you, but I don't. Because I truly believe that we can do this. And I have to say, at the end of our time, my time, we did everything that everyone said wasn't possible. And I take a great deal of joy and actually satisfaction in knowing the WNBA is still around, because every single day there was more than one person to tell me that it wouldn't be there. So, so that's how we did it.
Okay, I'm going off script again because I just want to dig a little deeper into that. I guess operationally, though, what are some of the strategies that you put in place, like to do that, to create that sort of brick by brick? How did you do it?
Well, there was a couple of things. First of all, there's the league. And I didn't pay attention at the league level right away. I wanted to make sure, the league was going to be successful if the teams were successful. So I wanted to make sure that I got to every single team, understood how they were operating, what their strong points were, where they needed help. And then ultimately, we actually built model P&Ls that can show team how they could sell more. And we also I think what we did was really good was we did this whole analysis of where our strengths were. And we had to understand as an organization, the broader organization, what the NBA did well for the NBA was fantastic, but that the WNBA actually had different strengths, and we had to identify them and feel flexible enough and nimble enough to be able to emphasize those strengths. So for example, the NBA probably now sells, I don't know, I don't want to be wrong, but 60% plus, maybe more, of season ticket holders. A lot of them corporate businesses buying tickets. The WNBA is in the summer, and there just wasn't as many corporate businesses that were willing to buy season tickets. And so we said, well, what's our strength? Well, our strengths are families and groups and kids. It's the summer. And we pivoted to a whole strategy of marketing and execution around selling group tickets. And you know what happened? For the first time in 8 or 9 years, our attendance went up. So we knew we were on the right track. And so we doubled down. We said, let's do that again. And once again, it went up. And what happens is you have those proof points of success, and then people look at you and say, something good is happening there. And guess what? People started to watch more. People's sponsors began to sponsor more, whether on a local or a national level, even in the height of the recession. And why is that? Because the WNBA provided an affordable major league property product at a price people could afford at a time when the economic times were tough. And so again, everything layered on each other. So for anybody here who's building a team or is coaching or has a school that has teams, like you do your analysis and find out what are the key areas that you can elevate and take a step forward and demonstrate success. And then once you build on that, you take your next thing and you build on that. And before you know it, you will have a platform of proof points and success. I think it took 3 years before people stopped asking us when we were going to go under. And once we did that, then we could really actually elevate, even though, listen, people will still ask. It's not an uncommon question, but I think there's a great deal of stability behind it now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much for that insight. Probably just moving over to empowering, I guess a lot of this is about empowering women, in administrative positions and trying to get them to break down barriers. It's different. It's a different market over here, obviously, than to America. But I think we have a lot of challenges, particularly at community grassroots for women and girls in sport, in basketball. And I guess I just want to sort of pick your brain on empowering women at grassroots level in sport to continue to better themselves, to have
Sure.
goals and to push toward them.
Sure. And can I just ask you, when you say you have barriers that are different, can you just tell me a little bit more about what that means for you?
I mean, I think barriers in the sense that at community grassroots, there's a lot less resources, a lot less visibility, a lot less mentors. So that's what She Hoops is designed to do, is we're trying to offer sort of insights and leadership mentoring programs so that women at community grassroots can actually see these women, these incredible women that have achieved so much in sport, and take their advice and inspiration and try and, I guess, actively model their careers and their pathways on that, through that, if you understand.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I do. Again, and we all like to say, I think Billie Jean King says this, you can't be what you can't see. And so to be able to see success in front of you is a really powerful motivator. Interestingly enough, right now, I am working on a project about actually bringing women's basketball teams to Argentina in December. And, it's really interesting, if this is helpful. I have 11 teams or 12 teams under the umbrella that are male. And I said, we really want to have women's teams. And I was told by our delegate leaders in LATAM in Argentina, we don't have that here. And I'm like, okay, but you do. And they're there, and we want to find them. And so we got with the other countries. We talked to, actually, Australia is going to be sending a team. And we talked to the Canadians, and we talked to the US, and we talked to the Israelis. And we didn't give up. We didn't ask once. We didn't ask twice. We didn't ask 3 times. And then we were always available with solutions, even understanding that it's under-resourced. We don't have enough money. We were committed to create success. And I will tell you, I'm rather amazed and joyful that we'll be bringing 3 women's teams, 2 open teams from the US and 1 U18 team to compete against Argentinians, Australians, and Israelis. And it's going to be the first. And it might not be exactly what you have hoped for the first time around, but we are doing it. And I would say that sometimes as women, we look for perfection as opposed to execution. And I would tell you that perfection is the enemy of good.
Love it.
I love this story. My husband always says to me, if you were in the United States, or you could say, let's say we're in Australia and you're on the Gold Coast and you want to get to across the country. Gosh, what's the big city on the West Coast?
Perth.
Huh?
Perth.
Perth. You want to get to Perth. Okay. It's probably not the same highway system that you have here, but if you had to wait for every light to turn green to go, guess what? You're not going to get there, right? And so there's going to be red lights along the way, and there might be even construction and detours, but you have to commit to get there. You have to believe and have a passion to get there in order to make a difference, to make it happen.
So in doing that, do you think that you sort of have to structure that, when you make a commitment, like how would you do it? You make a commitment to something and then do you make a plan and then follow that plan to a T? Or is it like you just you got to be flexible, right?
You will totally have to be flexible. And I think that's the point of the story. If my plan said, okay, I am not going to go until all the lights are green, guess what? I am never going to go. I'm never going to be able to put my foot on the accelerator because it just doesn't happen that way. I really believe in flexible problem solving, which is, okay, I have to get from here to here. There's many ways that, the most direct way is going to be straight. But I have to be prepared and not deterred if I have to make a right and a left before I get over here. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset of problem solving and understanding and anticipating the problems where you can. But if you can't anticipate the specific problems, just understand it's never going to be a straight line. And that's okay. It doesn't mean it's failure. It doesn't mean that you're not doing it right. It just means it's life. And life throws at us so many obstacles. I never forget, I was doing a show with a friend of mine and someone said to me, hey, what happens when someone throws a curveball at you? Well, what would you do? I say, I catch it. And as long as you're willing to catch curveballs and then possibly throw them back, you will be able to move forward with where you want to get to.
So much for me interviewing you, I just want to ask you questions that are relevant to my situation and I'd
love to answer them. It's okay. I'd love to answer them.
No, I won't. I'll let Christy write a few in the chat box. But it's so awesome listening to you just talk about this. I guess from your perspective, what are some of the barriers that you're facing at the moment in sport for women's sport over in America?
Ooh, okay. It's interesting. I want to think that so much has changed, and it has. And I want to be grateful for all the goodness, all the new money that's come in, the sponsors that are talking about underwriting, a lot of the television that's happening. The conversation has changed. Okay. And yet, at the same time, there's still this under kind of current of pushback against women being all that they can be. In America, there's this populist conversation that's a little bit concerning in terms of women's rights, our ability to control our bodies. And when people talk about that, to me, in a sense, there's a lack of respect for another human being to be able to pursue and have access to the resources that I believe, are born to be able to have. And so I can be deterred by that. And sometimes I'm angered by it. I am. And then I say, okay, I'm gonna not look for all the green lights, but I'm going to try to continue to move forward because I still think there's so much opportunity, possibilities that can happen if we work together.
Yeah. So when you hit those moments, right, when you're so angry and frustrated and you feel like there's no way forward, but you have to move forward, how do you do that? How do you handle that frustration and that anger, and how do you channel it into breaking down barriers to progressing to moving forward?
Well, first of all, you got to ask yourself the question: what kind of progress am I going to make getting angry? Well, I need to vent, so I'll usually find a friend, or somebody that wants to listen to me. Usually, it could be my husband. He's really good and he gets it very much. Yeah. And I'll say, all right, I'm not asking you to change anything for me, right? I just need you to listen. And in that process, I can hear myself and I'm like, okay. And then you take a step back or to the side and you say, all right, now what am I going to do? What's the most important thing that I need to get done? If my goal is here, what's the thing I have to do here to make sure that I can get there? And then focus on that. And I'll tell you about the WNBA really quickly, because I think it's a really important one. When I took over the WNBA, I had no idea how broken it was. I didn't do some diligence that I probably should have. It wasn't like the plugs were not plugged into the sockets. It's like the wiring had been ripped out. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? And then I realized in the business of sport, one of the most telling metrics is attendance. And I'm like, I don't like the attendance game. I think it could be manipulated or whatever. And I said, you know what? It's not for me to decide whether it's the right game or the wrong game. It is the game. And so in order to establish this business, I have to figure out how to win the attendance game. And as I explained to you before, right, we did this analysis. We figured out it was more about groups and about season tickets. And once we did that, I could rail at the system for it being a stupid way to measure. It didn't matter. It was what it was. So let me figure out the key strategic steps that we need to take to position us to be successful. And when you do that, guess what? You're on the road to success. And then there'll be something else that will make me angry or upset, or someone will say something like Stephen A. What's his name? Stephen A. Scott or whatever, the guy that yells on ESPN, who questioned our right to exist as human beings. I'm like, who are you? And who gives you the right to question us? And so my response to him was I just didn't listen to him anymore. I just shut him out.
Yeah.
That worked for me. That worked for me.
That's good. I like that. Look, I guess sort of on that, but not on that. How do you ensure organisations promote diversity and inclusivity as well? I think that's obviously a key one in the WNBA, but it's something that, it's quite topical at the moment.
How do you ensure it?
Yes.
It's just about it. I really believe it's about intentionality
and authenticity. Yeah.
Yeah, you really have to say, listen, this is what I want to do. And then what's the best ways for me to do it? And generally, it's about broadening your vision and your networks. And to think about, well, if I'm interested in having a broader set of opinions and visions and experiences around the table, then I have to proactively go and find them, those people who have them. It's so frustrating when you often hear, at least along the way, I've always heard in my career, well, I can't find those people. And I would say it's because you're not looking in the right places, or you're just not looking. Because it may be hard to find certain people of a certain experience, but they're there. And once you start to tap in to different communities, then those communities will lift you up and they'll even help you be more diverse, which is really a great thing.
Awesome. What advice would you give to aspiring female leaders who want to break down barriers in their organizations and make a difference in the sports industry?
The first thing I would say is believe in yourself, right? Believe that you have the power within you, the courage within you to make a difference. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. I'm not suggesting that. It doesn't mean you'll get it all right. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that if you have a belief that you can make a difference and a passion to move forward, then you will. And I think that's really, really, really an important piece. And then once you have that, really sit down and ask yourself the question, where do I want to make the difference? I mean, that's a broad thing, like breaking down barriers. Specifically, in your world, which barrier do you want to address first, right? Is it bringing more women on the staff? Is it making sure that more women are promoted? Is it making sure there's more resources and money to help young women play? Which one of those do you want to address? And then start to build a little plan against whatever that objective is, and then start to execute. I really believe that incremental steps creates exponential change. I'll say it again. Incremental steps, little steps, create exponential change. Again, I'm going to go back to my attendance thing. Year one, first of all, it was 8 years of decline in WNBA attendance growth. Year one, we were up 1%. Okay, you'd say, 1%. Year two, we were up 2%. But look, that means in 2 years, we're up 3%. Then we're up another 2%. And all of a sudden, guess what? Our business is growing. People are investing. So if you see, let's say, a youth. I don't know the hierarchy of your issues. If you sat down and said, this is the most important, whether it's all individual. But even for me right now, raising money so these girls can play in a foreign country, then I've got to say, okay, I need to raise money. How am I going to do that? Who is that going to be? How much is it going to be? Who am I going to bring on my team, right? I'm not doing this alone. And I've had some great guys step up and say, hey, we're with you. We're going to help you. And we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. I think I need 16 open athletes to play. And we're going to figure it out. So that would be my guidance. And honestly, it's how I guide myself, or at least I try to. Sometimes I find myself ungovernable, but I get through it. You can understand that, Lauren, I'm sure.
What makes you great? So looking back over your career, obviously the WNBA was a massive challenge, but what was maybe your biggest challenge? Was it stepping into that role in the WNBA and then having to sort of turn it around the way that you did and leave it in a better place? Like what was your biggest challenge?
Honestly, it was the hardest job I've ever had, and it was the best job I ever had, right? There's something about doing something difficult, learning so much, not only about the world, but also about yourself, that is so gratifying that you keep, right? No one can take that from you. And it was really hard in the face of so much negativity to be able to show up every day with a positive attitude of belief that we can do this and that there's no other option but success. Yeah. And I've said this many, many times, I think what David Stern taught me the most was to not hear the word no. Because if I went home every single day with all the no's permeating my body, it'd be hard to get up the next morning. And it was just like, I don't hear you. I got a mission. I'm mission focused, and we're not going to be done until we succeed.
Yeah. So this is another one going off topic, but mental health. Yeah. Like, how did you deal with that? That was back in a time when we really didn't talk about, mental health and like support systems and things like that. So how do you deal with getting up to every single day and having to face that criticism, having to face the naysayers and doing that?
Yeah. And I would say that sometimes it was really difficult, but I will say this. I was lucky because, first of all, I love the game so much and I love it still. I hear a bouncing ball. It's like, Pavlov's dogs. It just makes me happy. And I had the chance to consistently go out. I didn't hide in my office. I wanted to be out amongst the players. And they probably thought that was weird at the time. Like every time I went to the city, I want to take players out to dinner. Like, really? Yeah. And I was also out with the fans. And so there was this constant positive feedback loop that this work was having such a great impact in communities and arenas and on, amazing elite athletes who got to pursue their dreams and play. And so I was able to create that positive side of the experience that informed why this work was so important and was worth taking on the difficulties and the challenges.
Yeah, Donna, I think from my experience with you as well, like back then, because I'm quite introverted as well. So when you came along, I really feel like the way that you're able to connect with people, superstars, fans, just anyone, you're able to connect in a way that's really meaningful and authentic. And I suppose I just want to ask a question about that. Like, how do you make a point of creating these relationships with people that brings them to you, that makes them want to be around you and support you? Because that's how it felt like with me. It felt like, no, I want to be, I want to support her. She's incredible.
Well, no. So let's just start there. You are incredible. And you were incredible. And I looked at you and I felt this incredible energy around wanting to be a great player, but also wanting to do good in the world, and that you weren't sure exactly where to take that. And I just felt if I could be somebody who could help you with that, then that was part of what I wanted to do. That was part of the role that I had. I often felt like our athletes overall, we needed to take better care of you. And it's a weird thing in a professional sport, right? But sometimes we forget that you're 22 to 23 to 26 and you're in different countries and you're competing on your own, and it can be lonely. And, you know, the idea of building community with our athletes and around them, I still think it's really, really important. And you're just special. And listen, and uniquely special among many athletes who are special, but you just permeated this wonderfulness.
Oh, I don't know about that, but thank you. That's, you know, the way that you're able to bring people to you and on a journey. I think that's something that people need to understand. You know, me too. It's one of those things, you've got to be able to connect with people in a way that is authentic, that makes them want to follow and support. And I think that is something with you that is really unique and special as well. So I just want to highlight that. Okay, future goals and aspirations. Actually, before we go to that, I want to know, looking back, is there anything that you would change about during your career? Anything that you would change? Any mistakes that you've made? Things that you've learned from that you would like to go back and wish you could go back and change?
Wow. I try not to. I try not to play that game. And if I did, I'm trying to think, what would I say I would change? And I try to look at everything as a learning experience. Everything is a learning experience, which is another piece of advice I would give to anyone who would be listening today. Find learning in everything. And we're all living in a world that's changing so quickly, technologically, culturally, socially, that we all have to be students of life. And we have to be willing to learn and take that learning and see how we want to pivot and be nimble and adjust. And so as I look back, would I do anything differently? You know, the only thing that's funny, the thing that popped into my mind is I heard another woman say this and I felt kind of sad for her, but I kind of feel the same way. It's like, would I have had more kids if I could have? You know what I mean? It's not anything professionally. Yes, I made mistakes or whatever they were, but you move on. But that's one thing I can't do now per se. I guess I suppose I could adopt kids at this stage. I probably wouldn't. I've wonderful, wonderful family, but maybe that. You didn't expect that,
Okay,
did
so then, oh, well, no, I didn't, but that's okay. I think like being able to share that is really important. I think people being able to hear it as well is really important. Because I know like a lot of women are in similar situations. So, and focusing on career, family, like how do you do it?
I have so many people that I talk about that. And I have a lot of friends who have kids now because we've had that conversation.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have, and you know, it doesn't have to be either or either. So.
No. Okay. So obviously you've done so much in your career. What's left? Like, where are you going? What do you want to do?
Well, actually, there's a lot of things I want to do. I sit on a public company board. We're working on that. I sit in a lot of private company boards. When I left the WNBA, I began a not-for-profit. I realized just how my heart was engaged in the elevation of women and girls. And so when I came back to Jacksonville, which is in the south of the United States, different culture, a community that had a certain voice, didn't seem to be too focused on women. I knew that I wanted to devote a good deal of my time to elevating women and girls and building community. And so that's what I did. I created a not-for-profit called Generation W. It's a national thought leadership event. Lauren, I'm going to have to get you here. Anybody else, you're all invited. It'll be April of 2024. And then from that, we spun out a thing called Generation WOW, which is all about teen girls. And it's continuing to grow, and it's going to be growing nationally. We were in Portland, Oregon, and around Florida and in New York. And so I enjoy that work. From a business perspective, honestly, I'm very much engaged in pursuing the option of whether Jacksonville is a WNBA market. And I believe that it is. I've got an unbelievable group of people who are excited by that. And so we're going to take our time, build the case of why WNBA should have a team here. It will be one of the most successful teams in the league because we know a little bit about how to do that. So I'm hoping we can do that.
That's awesome. That is incredible to hear. Look, I'll just say to everyone, can you start putting some questions the chat box so that Donna can answer them for you if you've got some. I guess we'll just keep chatting along. I can keep asking questions for the next 20 minutes as well, but we definitely want to hear from the participants. And if you have any questions for her, please just put them in the chat box. So, in your opinion, what makes a good leader?
Yeah. I think what makes a good leader are several things. I think that having a vision of where you would like to take, if it's a leader of a company, I would say somebody who has a vision of where you want to take that company, the ability to communicate it in a way that people can hear it, and also have an empathy of understanding how people feel and where they come from, and authenticity. Being real, and trustworthy. I think those are the things that I respect in leaders. I think sometimes when you have leaders, you learn what you want to be, and you also learn what you don't want to be. And I've had the good fortune to be able to learn those lessons from the leaders that I've worked, had the good fortune to work for.
We've lost Laura and Donna, but
okay, we can talk to Chris
in the group chat from Christy.
Christy, thank you. What advice do you have when discussing women's sports with corporate sponsors? Well, I actually had quite a lot of success. David never thought it was enough success, but I actually did. And so for the first thing you want to understand when you deal with corporate sponsors is you want to understand what their objectives are. Remember, it's about them and about you, but it's really about them. And you want them to understand, like, who do they want to reach? What culture do they want to be aligned with, right? What are their objectives? And then when you understand that, look at what you're offering, right? So with women's sports, you're dealing with elite athletes, if you're dealing with whatever you are, or if it's even young girls, you're talking about developing the future leaders of tomorrow and how much you'd want to invest in them and how important young women are to the pipeline of talent where we have a global, competition for talent. There's all different ways to, outline why that's all important. And then you put that together. That's how I usually do it. Like, here's who you are. Here's where we understand you are. Here's our values. Here's where our values connect and overlap. And this is why this would be a good partnership. And that's also how I work with my not-for-profit very often. And you creatively create ideas and concepts where both of you win together. But you have to make sure that a corporate sponsor can go back, or whoever you're pitching, and say, this is why we should do it. We'll be successful in these ways. And they're not only about audience generation, it's also about culture and community and society and youth and all these other things. So that's basically how I recommend it. And honestly, when I came into the WNBA, they hadn't sold a WNBA targeted specific sponsorship in 5 years, and I sold $5 million in 10 months. It wasn't enough to carry the league, but I was really proud of that. All right. So thanks, Christy, for your question. I hope that helps. Hi, Kathy. Basketball Australia has been very successful with their Opens programs, Opens Gems, but really struggles to get national media coverage. Do you have any tips in this area? Yes, I do. First of all, do you have relationships with the key people who can make that happen? So, there's usually different categories. You have ownership of those key media properties. You have the leadership of those key media properties. Then you have the actual writers of that content and producers. Do you have relationships with all those people? I think that's critical. One of the things that we did, and I would recommend this for Basketball Australia, is to do a little roadshow. Put together at a key time where it's topical and important. Bring some of your great athletes who they would know of. I mean, Lauren's a legend. Every time I mention her name, oh, I love her. I know you have many others. I've always been a big fan. And then target some of the key media and go and sit with them and talk to them and create the opportunity for you to get to know them better, but also for them to get to know you better. Because really, at the end of the day, a lot of it is about relationships. So I don't know if you've been able to do any of that. It takes time to cultivate, but when you do, it will generate a lot of positive impact. So thanks, Kath. I hope that helps. Anybody else have any questions? Did I still lose Lauren?
Now I'm back.
Okay,
Sorry.
great. That's okay.
I do just on that as well, like in terms of marketing women's sport, it's obviously a very different market to men's sport. Is there anything that you can sort of tell us, you know, how you're talking about selling the league and how you were able to get that $5 million in sponsorship? How differently did you market it as opposed to a men's sport?
Well, it was interesting because if I marketed it the same, they didn't want to even hear it. Like our ratings were better than MLS at the time. Our ratings were better than the NHL at the time. And yet marketers didn't want to buy us at the time. Now in America, and I don't know, tell me, are you feeling some of this positive cultural momentum behind women in sports in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. There is, but it hasn't yet translated into the women's basketball game here, which is interesting considering that we have been the longest running national league here in Australia for women, elite women as athletes. So our league is just sort of pottering along. Christy's doing a really good job at the moment. But there's a lot of change that needs to happen. And my personal opinion is that we haven't yet figured out how to market women in basketball. We haven't figured out what it is that attracts corporate partnerships to women's sport. And also too, we don't have the backing of men's sport behind the WNBL here. So we're doing it on our own. But yeah, personally, I believe we have not figured out how to do it. And you look at the WNBA and the social change that they're creating and the platforms that all the athletes have, and their voices are being heard, and I think that has a lot to do with why it's blooming over there,
Yeah, but it's a challenge. It's challenging, and it's 28 years now, right? But it's a challenge. So I really do think it's about getting out. I don't know how much you've done this, and I see this in a lot of the sports I deal with now, is we tend to be a little insular and talk to ourselves a lot. Yeah. And we forget that a lot of people don't know who we are. Like we'll say, why don't they support us? And then they'll say, well, do people even know who we are? Well, then how do we get them? If that's the problem, how do they get to know who we are? So what are all the levers that you can pull, right, that will help people to know who you are, right? Do you do, and I don't know the key markets, do you do a Sydney, Melbourne, basketball, like playground basketball tour, right? Mm-hmm. Where you take a bunch of great, luring like a whole bunch of your colleagues and you go out, and I'm not saying to do pickup, but you show up in the best playgrounds in the country to, talk basketball and do a little clinic, right? Yeah. So that people can touch you and feel you, literally. I don't mean hold on to you, but touch you, feel your energy. See you in person. Oh my God, I saw Lauren Jackson. Oh my God, I don't know who else is playing these days. I did think I saw.
Great players. Is he? There's a lot of great players in Australia that are coming through. But you're right, we haven't yet done that.
Is Bevilacqua coaching in the WNBA?
Yeah, she's in Phoenix. Yeah, assistant coach.
Oh, I love her, and I saw that the other day, so I was really excited for her. But I think those guys, that could be an idea, but a concept of how do you there's so much content now that people are looking for. What's your TikTok content strategy? Is there a Netflix content strategy? I know you have great terrestrial and cable television, satellite television, who there would be willing to do some stuff. And you have to start somewhere and then build on it and build on it and build on it. Just because you've been there for a long time, it doesn't necessarily mean that people really know who you are.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Is there any more questions from our participants?
Come on, Mark. I'm just going to go. Hey, Allison. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Marnie. Hey, Samantha. Hey, Lisa.
Sam, have you got a question? Yeah.
Just come say hello. Just ask a question. Oh, there's Leonard. Hi, Leonard. Maybe that's not exactly.
Donna, I love that you said previously that a lot of women strive for perfection instead of execution. And I thought that was really great. And I resonated with that because I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff. So I'd love to know, did you ever make mistakes in your role as an administrator? And like, what did you do to rectify it and like come back from it? Like, how did you keep yourself poised, I guess?
Oh my gosh, I made mistakes all the time. And I made so many, I can't even remember what they are. So if you're talking about, like every single day, you think, oh, I could have said this, or I could have done that, or I could have recognized this person, or I could have pitched this, or I don't remember huge gaping ones. And I'm sure there are people who could come and remind me, don't you remember when you did this? But I've moved on from those. So the idea of you have to forgive yourself, like you really do. You just have to be able to forgive yourself. If you have I'm just trying to think, if you have a steady stream of big mistakes, then you're going to have to take a step back and say, okay, where am I thinking? What is my strategy? What is it about my execution? That's fine. Often though, when you want to be perfect, it's paralyzing. Perfection can stop you from moving forward for fear that you will make a mistake. And, we all hear often enough, you don't grow unless you make mistakes. But we've all been punished in situations where we've made mistakes, which makes us fearful. We've got to learn to create environments where, you know what, if you don't fail forward, then you're not going to be able to move forward. And that's not about killing a business in any major way, although lots of people have done that. And moved on to be successful in the next go. So we can't be afraid. Oh, we can, but we have to learn how to overcome that, because otherwise we're going to be in the same place as we are now. And that's not what we want. That's just not what we want.
Awesome. All right, come on, participants. We want more questions. We've only got 8 minutes left with Donna, so we want to make the most of these.
Okay, Natalie, hello. Sarah, hello. Allison, hello. I already said hello to Samantha, but she doesn't want to say hello back to me. That's okay. Anybody else have any questions? I'd be happy to answer them. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yeah.
What is your grand vision for all of this? 5 years down the road, we're gonna be in touch. I'm gonna come visit you, and you're gonna say, you know what? I really wanted to make this happen, and here it is. What is it?
Look, I really want a connection, a community of women in basketball, and I feel like, from what I've seen working at Basketball Australia, I feel like it is quite fragmented, and community grassroots basketball. Women in community grassroots basketball, not necessarily the athletes, but the people working, at the coalface. It's a long road ahead, if they've got goals of, really getting ahead in administration and sport. I think the pathway is not very visible. So for me, being able to connect women in the sport, provide inspiration, provide mentoring and education opportunities, and really give women the opportunity to thrive in the sport. I think that's, something that I want to be a part of. And also too, I want to see more girls participating. I think that's the really big thing. I want to see young girls getting into the sport and staying in the sport, because it is such a great sport and it can take you all over the world. It can offer so many opportunities, but I think at the moment, we're just not doing enough to sort of break down the barriers and keep young girls playing basketball because of a lot of different reasons. But hopefully She Hoops can really help bridge that.
No, and I think that's really great. And does Basketball Australia, do you host basketball camps around the country?
She Hoops has just started doing it. So we're starting, we've run a few holiday camps. So every holiday period now, we're going to be running holiday camps with local association clubs and associations, taking, Opals or myself or just high profile women into, different communities talking with the kids, working with the kids, and yeah, so we're doing that stuff. We're sort of implementing that as we speak.
I think that's great. Listen, you've got to be in the community and people have to see you to make it happen. And do you guys have like a little sales or sizzle video? Are you doing any kind of social media?
She Hoops is at the moment through She Hoops, but we haven't yet. Look, we've got a few gaps at the moment. Obviously, the WNBL is one of them. So Christy and I are going to start working together pretty closely on, bridging that gap and creating things and social media and stuff. But Locke is also doing quite a lot of work in that space. So we're just, it's more about visibility at the moment and getting supporters through social media.
So you know what I hear? I hear, as I listen to you, I hear this incredible opportunity. I really do. I think you're at the front end of making things happen. And if you like to make things happen, then this is the place you want to be. Because even though you've been around for a long time, there's so many things that you can begin to do that's really going to help your visibility, that's going to help your sponsorships. I see Lisa asking about how getting dads more involved, and I have a thought for you on that real in a minute. And so just lay out your metrics, figure out what you want to try. You asked a little bit about perfection and making a mistake. You might try to say, listen, I'm going to do these camps and they're going to work in these markets, but not this. Or actually at the same time, I'm going to do clinics, let's say. And those are going to be more productive than the other. You're going to try a lot of things, but the most important thing is you got to introduce yourself in a really nice, systematic way, get yourself out there socially, and you're going to make things happen. Remember, 1%, you double it. You're 2%, you double it. You're 4%. That's real growth. You guys can do this. And I'm just so excited for you. In terms of dads and daughters, I have to tell you, my favorite thing at the WNBA that we created was dads and daughters nights, because dads were some of our biggest allies. They really wanted to see their daughters do well. But you're saying that a lot of the dads of your young girls will only take them to the male games and think they're encouraging their daughters. How can I get them to see? So here's what I would do. I would create a special dads and daughters practice that they come to, and you have dads do the drills, even if they're not basketball players. They pass with their daughters, they do this, whatever you can, and make it really, really fun. Maybe one of the dads is an official, but get all the dads in there. And then after the practice, you can prep your girls. You're going to do a Q&A. And you're going to talk to the girls about, and the dads, to let them begin to see how important it is for them to have role models. So maybe you bring in some of the opals that day, or some other, administrator, or somebody who's played. And it could even be a guy who actually is a fan of the girls. And you can be a little assumptive in your language, which is say, listen, girls who you all want to play, you're all so talented. Who wants to be an opal? How are you going to get there? How many of you have seen them play? And begin to develop a relationship with the dad, and then create the situation where you have a group outing and you take them to the women's game. So again, sometimes we expect things to be there, but without truly understanding that some of these guys just don't know any better. They just don't. But we can help them know better. And a lot of them are more open than we think to doing the things that we think are in the best interest, because they will align if we help them get there. I don't know. I just kind of laid out a whole little program for you, didn't I? I hope you like it.
Yep, Sam's definitely taking notes. That's good. All right. Look, I think that's all the questions that we have there, Donna. But thank you so much for your time. You've been incredible. And like I said, just to be able to provide your insights to women in this country, and it's awesome that they get the opportunity to do this. So thank you very much.
No, let me just say this one. It's my pleasure. I think what you're doing is really important and really valuable. I'm a fan. I can be a resource anytime you want. You get me so excited. I want to hop on a plane and come here and go there and help. But believe, and I know you do, because you are a believer, and all of you are on tonight, and those who I hope get to see this, know that you can make a difference. I've always said there is magic when people get together, and especially women. And so you're all magical. And so, Lauren, thank you for being our grand magical wizard.
Oh, no worries, mate. Good one. All right. Thank you very much. And yes, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Donna.
My pleasure. Take care, everybody. Be well.
Bye.